Tonight on Primetime, as Ukraine marks 35 years of independence, the UK is set to hand over blueprints for Storm Shadow cruise missiles. But as the UK vows support, is their missiles offer what Zelenskyy needs the most? Thanks for joining us. I'm Katie Wilson. Drone debris has hit a private childcare centre in Russia's southern city of Krasnodar. 2 children were killed and 9 others were injured. The attack also sparked a major fire at an ozone logistics hub in the city.
A drone attack in Makhachkala, Dagestan has triggered a fire at Russia's online retailer Ozon's logistics hub. The company said it had also temporarily suspended operations at 2 warehouses in the nearby regions of Stavropol and Adygea amid a drone attack alert. Ozon said the facilities were not damaged. Meanwhile, debris from a drone attack has hit a private childcare center in Russia's southern city of Krasnodar, killing 2 children. 9 other people were injured, including 7 youngsters. Regional Governor Veniamin Kondratyev said the incident happened overnight. Debris also fell on residential buildings while fires broke out at warehouses in the city, including at Russia's online retailer Ozon at its logistics hub. The company said that operations have been suspended. In Russia's Stavropol region, a drone attack on an industrial area in the city of Nevinomysk was repelled, according to Regional Governor Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Meanwhile, over in Ukraine, a Russian attack on the outskirts of Kyiv killed 3 people, according to the regional governor. Russian President Vladimir Putin has described Ukraine's strikes on Russian economic targets as the opening of Pandora's box. He said Moscow would respond by targeting Ukraine's most sensitive economic sectors. The comment comes as Ukraine steps up its attacks on logistics hubs and warehouses across Russia, targeting infrastructure it says supports Moscow's war effort. Meanwhile, Kyiv seeks additional air defense interceptor missiles from the United States and Europe to strengthen its air defense capabilities. On Monday, Russia's defense ministry said that it had launched a Soyuz rocket carrying a spacecraft for defense purposes. According to the ministry, the Soyuz 2.1B rocket lifted off from the Plesetsk cosmodrome in northern Russia. The ministry did not provide further details about the spacecraft or its mission.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's allies are stepping up efforts to strengthen its air defences, with the Coalition of the Willing meeting as Kyiv marks Independence Day. Leaders are also considering how to increase pressure on Russia.
The Coalition of the Willing has focused on strengthening Ukraine's air defences, with Kyiv asking its partners for more systems to help counter Russian missile attacks. British Prime Minister Andy Burnham co-chaired the meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, as well as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Burnham used the meeting to announce that Britain and France would share Storm Shadow technology with Ukraine.
Volodymyr has now asked that we share our Storm Shadow technology so that Ukraine can build these capabilities themselves. I am pleased to confirm today that I have approved that request and that British and French industry, and we thank President Macron and his colleagues too, that we will now work with Ukraine to take this capability forward.
Zelenskyy said Ukraine urgently needs more air defences ahead of winter.
We need to make sure that the winter package of air defense will be in Ukraine, and we need winter package of Patriot missiles, and we need, and that we hope that we will have this package. We need at least 300 Patriot missiles for the winter and for the cold months.
Macron said France would speed up deliveries of interceptors to Ukraine, while also calling for stronger action against Russia's shadow fleet, including tougher sanctions and closer coordination. The meeting came as Burnham made his first overseas visit since becoming Prime Minister, joining European leaders in Kyiv for Ukraine's Independence Day. The Kremlin said sharing classified British technology would add fuel to the fire and further worsen relations. European leaders, however, used the meeting to reaffirm their commitment to strengthening Ukraine's defences as Kyiv continues to push for more support.
Ukraine and Norway have signed a new defence agreement to expand joint manufacturing in unmanned systems and defence technologies. According to Ukrainian officials, the deal will advance joint projects and deepen defence cooperation. Ukraine's drone deal focuses on sharing combat experience and establishing joint drone production facilities abroad. The drone deal brings together more than 20 international partners, including 50 NATO members, with each agreement lasting 10 years. Norway also announced it will provide $9.2 billion in aid for Ukraine next year. Well, President Zelenskyy says Ukraine will not pursue an alternative to NATO membership as it seeks firm security guarantees. He said on Sunday that joining the security alliance would give Kyiv greater access to funding and defence cooperation. He said Ukraine needs €30 billion in EU loans this year to cover its budget shortfall, as well as $27 billion for defence. Ukraine's president said the diplomatic window to end the war would last until next summer, but Russia remains unwilling whilst Kyiv holds the Donbass. Well, we're going to have more on this and other stories after the break, so do stay with us. Welcome back, you're watching Primetime. We're going to return to our coverage of Ukraine now, and joining us is a member of Ukraine's parliament, Alexei Goncharenko. It's a pleasure to have you with us this evening. Happy Independence Day, first and foremost, of course the 5th under wartime conditions. Could you tell us how this day is being marked across Ukraine?
Hello, thank you very much for congratulations. Yes, it's a birthday of the country and of the state, and this is a big holiday, and today is 35 years after Ukraine regained its independence. And I can't tell you that there are big celebrations throughout the country. Unfortunately, the war continues, and Russia attacks today. For example, my native city Odessa was attacked many times, and other cities were under attack. So we don't have a very celebrative mood, I would tell. But at the same time, we're proud of our country. We are proud of our army. We are proud of our people who stopped one of the biggest military powers in the world, who proved that existence of Ukraine is not an accident. But we have a nation, we have the state, and this is very important for us. And I think today everybody realizes that Ukraine will survive this war. There are many questions how the war will end. Will Ukraine control all its territories in the end of the war, or part of them will be still illegally occupied by Russia, and so on. But I think it's clear for everybody that the country, that Ukraine, will exist, and that we will be one of the biggest military powers of Europe, and one of the biggest powers of the region.
And one person who gave his full backing to Ukraine today was the UK's Prime Minister Andy Burnham, who made his first official visit to Ukraine, and he's promised to keep up the pressure on Russia despite those recent threats from the Kremlin. What was your reaction to the speech that he made today?
First of all, I was happy to see Mr. Burnham in Kyiv. Yes, and it shows that our support of Ukraine from the United Kingdom is not the question of leadership, exact person, and then does not depend from who is Prime Minister, but it's about support of UK people, society, and all political class, and we are very thankful for this. So I was happy to see Prime Minister Burnham in Kyiv. It was great to hear that this 100 years agreement that we signed with the United Kingdom, they respect this agreement, and they are looking forward to work together, and that we still can count on their support.
And now
I hope that United Kingdom will show leadership, because in the beginning of full-scale invasion, United Kingdom was not just one of supporters of Ukraine, but UK was showing leadership. Today we're a little bit lacking of such leadership, especially in the situation when US support is wavering. So I hope very much that Prime Minister Burnham will show leadership and will rally other countries around our common purpose.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned President Trump there, as many analysts have said that the UK and France handing over their missile technology is a signal of their trust in Ukraine. How do you think other leaders like the US, as you mentioned, how might they be reacting to this?
I hope that by these, United Kingdom will show example to their closest allies, who are United States of America, that we need to be as close to one another as possible, that the world is a dangerous place today, that there is a lot of threats, and the civilized world should unite. So I hope that United States will follow this example of United Kingdom, which was shown today.
And what difference do you think that self-sufficiency will make to Ukraine's war effort?
For sure, it is very important for us to have capacity to reply on Russian attacks and to cause as much damage to Russian economy, military power as possible. And such technologies are very important for us. But all of these we need to achieve peace. What is the difference between Ukraine and Russia? Not just that Russia attacked Ukraine and we are just defending ourselves. But the main thing is we want peace as soon as possible. And all what we are doing is just because Russia refuses to stop the war. And there is no other way to make them to agree to stop the war than to show to them that they will pay a huge price if the war will continue.
And let's get into that a bit more. As warehouses belonging to Russia's biggest online retailers have been hit by a wave of Ukrainian drone strikes, are these sites being targeted because they supply components to the military? Obviously, Moscow is denying this. Or is it about disrupting logistics and disrupting the economy within Russia?
No, it's clear, absolutely clear that these places were used for logistics of military components and double-purpose components. So that is, first of all, that is the most important. And secondly, for sure, this is the war. Russia is destroying our energy infrastructure, our economy for all these years. And we are ready to show to Russia that we also have capacity to hurt significantly Russian economy, to make them feel pain from this. Again, the aim of this is not just retaliation, but the aim of this is to stop the war. And Ukraine is ready to stop the war right now on the current front lines, even living part of our territories temporarily occupied by Russia. So that is how we see the situation. And the only reason why the war continues is because Russia doesn't want to stop.
And how concerned are you about Ukraine's shortage of missiles and fighter jets, particularly as we're going into the winter shortly?
I'm very concerned about this. This is a huge challenge for us and a big problem. And we all know that Russia tries to weaponize winter and to freeze Ukrainians to death during these already 4 winters of full-scale invasion. And now the 5th winter approaches, and we understand that Russia has the same goal. So for us, it's just vital, these missiles interceptors against Russian ballistics, because it's one of the things which we can't deal with on ourselves. So we need this support from our allies.
It's been a pleasure to have you on the programme. Thank you very much for joining us this Independence Day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, delegates from 179 member states of the UN Convention to Combat Desertification are gathering in Ulaanbaatar for COP17, seeking solutions to the growing problem of land degradation. The conference, which opened on August 17th, brings together representatives of governments, local communities, businesses and more than 400 organisations. Around 40% of the world's land is already degraded, threatening food security and livelihoods for billions of people. The conference aims to strengthen international cooperation and develop practical solutions to restore degraded land and protect communities increasingly affected by desertification. Well, joining us now from COP17 in Ulaanbaatar is Pavana Valieva, a member of Azerbaijan's parliament. Thank you for joining us, firstly. Now, you're currently in Ulaanbaatar for the summit. How's it been going so far?
Good night from Ulaanbaatar. It's barely midnight here, and the world is gathering right now here for UN desertification COP. So there are a lot of government delegates here, and also civil society, media, environmentalists, activists gathering here to discuss land degradation and restoration problem and also sustainable land management, climate change issues. While the UN climate COP is held every year, the desertification COP and the biodiversity COP are generally convened every 2 years. So basically these three processes represent the three major pillars of the international environmental agenda under the Rio Conventions, which are aimed to address climate change, land degradation, desertification, and biodiversity laws. What makes this period particularly important is that the following COP29 in Baku in 2024, the three major environmental COP processes are taking place in close succession again this year. And in this sequence, COP major Mongolia, starting last week, and will continue by the end of this week. And it's therefore an important starting point for broader international environmental discussions that will continue through the subsequent biodiversity and also climate processes.
Thanks for clarifying those different denominations of COP there. Now, if we think about COP29, which took place in Baku, what steps is Azerbaijan taking to turn its climate commitments from COP29 into measurable results?
Yeah, we are still in this conversation quite a bit because we successfully hosted COP29, and we hosted one of the difficult COPs, finance COP, that was not only about technical issues, it was also about not only about logistics and hosting, organizing the event itself, but we also negotiated between developing and developed countries about finance. So this is a very comprehensive and difficult issue, but we did it. We tripled global climate finance, and also we achieved to fully implementation of Article 6, which was not agreed by between developing and developed nations for 10 years, and we did it during COP29. Also, we fully operationalized a loss and damage fund in Baku. So there is a strong legacy after this, and we contributed to indeed climate diplomacy. So here in Ulaanbaatar, COP17 also creates an important opportunity to strengthen synergies between climate action, land restoration, and biodiversity conservation. So that's why and there are some facts that restoring degraded land is one of the key solutions to addressing climate change itself. Healthy soil, forests, grasslands, wetlands, etc. Naturally, they are carbon sinks. So in fact, UNCCT estimates that restoring degraded land could remove around 3 billion tons of carbon from atmosphere every single year. So we are here discussing that we should not only focus on the atmosphere, we should focus on also to the land.
Interesting you make that sort of link between degradation and climate change, and Azerbaijan has set ambitious targets around renewable energy and emissions reduction. How does Azerbaijan balance those climate commitments with the country's continued importance as an oil and gas producer?
Yeah, Azerbaijan promoting sustainable urbanization, resilient economic growth, clean air, and green environment. We hosted 2 major UN events. We also hosted the biggest World Urban Forum with 13, and we shared our experiences, learned from others, and we continue our efforts in sustainability, global sustainability dialogue. Azerbaijan is moving from climate commitments to accelerating implementation of the targets. We renewed our NDCs, it's national determined contributions of Azerbaijan, and we now committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2035. At the same time, we are accelerating the development of renewable energy. Azerbaijan is championing about green energy projects because we have diversified energy resources, wind, solar, hydropower, and improving energy efficiency is also priority for us. Also, we committed to reduce methane emissions to signing and join global methane pledge to reduce methane emissions 30% by 2030. So we also promote electric mobility and invest in modern electricity infrastructure. Our ambition, basically is not only to reduce emissions, but also to build more resilient and sustainable, diversified and sustainable economy. The major priority is to transform Azerbaijan into green energy producer and exporter. Also, our liberated territories connect regional electricity markets with its big renewable energy potential. Also, when we linkage COP17 desertification COP with our priorities, so restoration of degraded landscapes in Azerbaijan's liberated territories also represent an additional major challenge and also opportunity, because landmine issue we have, unexploded ordnance contaminations, land degradation, which cause land degradation in Karabakh and East Zengezur region. So that's why these conferences is a good platform to highlight also landmine issue that also creates additional challenges for the land and land users.
And as this summit wraps up in Ulaanbaatar, what are the key events or commitments that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, this year's theme is restoring land, is restoring hope. This is very important because it covers a lot of areas. Restoring land is restoring culture, restoring climate, restoring economy, health, food security. They are very interlinked with each other, and climate change is bringing more frequent droughts, degraded soils, and putting food security at risk, especially in global south countries. It's very important to highlight this. And land restoration is not just an environmental investment that COP29, COP17's the central message is that. So the idea behind is beyond simply technical restoration of land. It's all about people, investment in people. So why the process also needs parliaments and national legislations? Well, the lands itself are sovereignty and territorial issue of every country itself. That's why global pledges cannot make change it alone. That's why the restoration issue need national legislations, financing, robust accountability mechanisms, which can make real differences, real change in the countries. That's why I'm here to discuss and to learn about from best practice, and also shared our good experiences with international community and with other countries' parliamentarians.
Well, all the best for the rest of the summit. Thank you very much for joining us on the programme this evening.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, after the break, we'll check in with our correspondents from around the globe, so do stay with us. Welcome back, you're watching Primetime. Pakistan's army chief has visited Tehran for talks on bilateral ties and regional developments. Oman's foreign minister is also due in the Iranian capital on Tuesday. Both countries have played a role in mediating between Iran and the US. Taras Shirarlu has the latest from Tehran.
Pakistan's top military commander and a key figure in mediated talks between Iran and the US, Field Marshal Qasim Munir, paid a one-day visit to Tehran on Monday, meeting senior Iranian officials as talks between Tehran and Washington remain stalled. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai said Field Marshal Munir's visit is aimed at strengthening bilateral relations and discussing regional developments. He told a weekly press briefing that navigation through the Strait of Hormuz is also on the agenda because of Pakistan's interest in the strategic waterway and its position on the Sea of Oman. The Pakistani army, in an official statement issued in Islamabad, said the visit was aimed at helping to resolve conflicts in West Asia peacefully and sustainably. General Munir, whose country mediated the fragile ceasefire agreement between Iran and the US in June, is accompanied by Pakistan's Interior Minister Syed Mohsen Naqvi. He reportedly spoke by phone to US President Donald Trump before departing for Tehran. As Iran and the US brace for a prolonged standoff over the Strait of Hormuz and other major disputes, talks between the two sides have reached a fresh impasse, raising concerns among countries in the region. Meanwhile, it was announced that Oman's foreign minister, Badr al-Busaidi, is scheduled to visit Tehran on Tuesday. Oman has long acted as a mediator between Iran and the US officials, passing messages between Tehran and Washington. It has also been in talks with Iran over the management of maritime traffic through the strait, with both countries bordering the strategic waterway linking the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. Tehran says it has reached an agreement with Muscat on shipping corridors through the narrow strait, but accuses the US of pressuring Oman not to accept Iran's terms, including the introduction of navigation fees and a ban on foreign military vessels passing through the waterway. According to Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai, there is no connection between the visits by General Munir and Omani Foreign Minister al-Busaidi. He says the talks between Iran and Oman will focus on bilateral ties and the Strait of Hormuz. Taras Shirarlu from Tehran for A News.
The inaugural Silk Road Finance and Technology Forum is underway in Tashkent. It brings together regulators, investors and technology leaders to discuss the future of finance in Central Asia. With the region still heavily dependent on natural resources, fintech is emerging as a potential new source of growth. But can financial technology become a new economic engine for Central Asia? Seva Rajapova reports from Uzbekistan's capital.
The Silk Road Finance and Technology Forum has brought together financial and technology leaders from across the regions in Tashkent. Held under the theme Al-Jabu, an Arabic concept meaning bringing parts together, the forum focuses on 5 key pillars: open banking, digital assets and stable coins, cross-border payments, Islamic finance and innovation and investment. Uzbekistan is at a turning point. 103 fintech companies are currently operating in the country, while the government wants that number to reach 200 by 2030. And as Uzbekistan looks to build its own financial technology ecosystem, one country's experience is particularly relevant: Singapore. The country houses more than 1,000 fintech companies specializing in digital payments, blockchain and regulatory technology. The market size of fintech in Singapore in 2026 is estimated to be at $13.97 billion.
Singapore is disproportionately collaborative. Because we are a small country, the only way you can survive is to collaborate, connect our system, work as a global hub to move money, work as a global hub to move systems, processes. In Asia, most of the companies have headquarters in Singapore because they believe that's the most efficient country when it comes to doing business in the Asian market. I see Tashkent almost identical construct as the hub in Central Asia to do this kind of hub activity.
Uzbekistan is already presenting itself as a regional investment hub. The country aims to attract $1 billion in foreign fintech investment by 2030 and train more than 5,000 specialists. A few months ago, the Tashkent International Investment Forum drew more than 8,000 participants from nearly 100 countries and produced agreements worth $30.5 billion. Fintech is now becoming another part of that strategy. This development suggests that the country is working to diversify an economy long reliant on international remittances and natural resources. In Uzbekistan, payment systems such as Uzcard and Humo support more than 35 million cards, while platforms such as PayMe, Alif and Zoom are expanding digital financial services. But the biggest opportunity may be financial inclusion. According to International Monetary Fund, only 45% of people in Caucasus and Central Asia have bank accounts. The challenge now is turning a rapidly growing digital sector into an industry that can compete beyond the region. Cyril Rajapov, Natik Mamedov and Khalid Aliyev reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Turkey has showcased its growing naval power and domestically developed defence technologies at the Technofest Blue Homeland Exposition. Thousands of visitors attended the four-day event, and one of them was our correspondent, Adam Morrow.
Turkey's Technofest Blue Homeland Exposition drew thousands of visitors to the Gölcük Naval Shipyard in the northwestern province of Kocaeli over the weekend. The four-day event showcased the country's expanding naval power and its ongoing drive to develop more of its defense technology domestically. Air demonstrations featured maritime patrol aircraft, Seahawk and Super Cobra helicopters, as well as Bayraktar TB2 drones operated by the Turkish Naval Forces. But the main attractions were at sea. A total of 37 naval vessels and platforms were on display, led by the TCG Anadolu, Turkey's largest warship and the centerpiece of its growing drone carrier capability. Frigates, submarines, support vessels, and the historic presidential yacht, the TCG Savarona, were also presented to visitors. The program included demonstrations by Turkish elite underwater units alongside competitions involving unmanned surface vessels, underwater vehicles, and subsurface rockets. Leading Turkish defense firms also presented air defense, missile, and autonomous maritime systems, including components of Turkey's multi-layered steel dome air defense architecture. This was the second edition of Technofest Blue Homeland, following its debut in Istanbul last year. The event is part of a broader national technology initiative, which aims to reduce reliance on foreign suppliers and encourage young engineers to enter strategically important industries. For Ankara, the event is more than a public technology festival. It's also a demonstration of the country's ambition to become a leading producer and exporter of naval platforms, unmanned systems, and advanced defense technology. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Kazakhstan's first vote for its new parliament has produced a strong early lead for the pro-presidential Adalet party as the country prepares for a major change to its political system. Fariza Kalamerzana has the details.
5 political parties are projected to enter Kazakhstan's new Kurultai, according to preliminary results released by the Central Election Commission. Adalet is leading with nearly 72% of the vote, far ahead of the other parties. Adalet is a new pro-presidential party formed earlier this year. It was later joined by Amanat, previously Kazakhstan's largest political party. Parties need at least 5% of the vote to enter parliament. Turnout was just over 74%, with more than 9.3 million people voting. There are still preliminary figures. The Central Election Commission is expected to announce the final results within 10 days of the vote. Meanwhile, international observers described the Kurultai elections as fair and open, saying they found no violations that could have affected their results.
We observed the process, According to our observations, all the conditions and all aspects of the process were transparent. Most importantly, no one put any pressure on us. We visited 10 polling stations in Almaty. In the evening, we also observed the vote counting process. No violations of the law were identified.
We would also like to highlight the 30% quota for women within the political party system, as well as the quota for an inclusive society. I personally believe this is a very positive development. Overall, all the necessary conditions have been provided at polling stations for people with disabilities. In general, the electoral process was organised at a very high level.
The Kurultai will have 145 lawmakers elected through party lists for 5-year terms. But this election is about more than a new parliament. Kazakhstan is also changing the structure of its political system. The previous two-chamber parliament is being replaced by a single-chamber Kurultai, which will have a greater role in key government decisions and in holding the government to account. The new Kurultai will have a bigger say in key appointments, including the Prime Minister, Vice President and members of the Constitutional Court. It will also have stronger powers to oversee the government, including the ability to express no confidence in individual ministers. That makes the role of the Speaker particularly important, as legislative power will now be concentrated in a single chamber. And once the Kurultai begins its work, the current government must step down within 2 months of the first session. The president must also appoint the vice president, a position restored under the amended constitution with the parliament's approval. Fariza Kalimurzana, Almaty, A News.
Afghanistan's authorities say they will not allow their territory to be used against neighbouring Tajikistan, following another incident along the two countries' border. Tajik authorities say 2 Afghan nationals were killed after illegally crossing the frontier and becoming involved in an armed confrontation with border forces. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
The Afghan government is playing down concerns of a wider confrontation with its neighbour Tajikistan. Afghanistan official spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid says recent activity along the border was linked to smuggling and was now under control. He says the incident didn't amount to military clashes or a serious security threat. Mujahid assured its neighbour that Afghan territory will not be allowed to be used against Tajikistan. His comments follow a statement from Tajikistan's State Committee for National Security, which says 2 Afghan nationals were killed after allegedly illegally entering Tajik territory. Tajik authorities accuse the men of drug trafficking and say they resisted border forces. Officials say weapons and around 17 kilograms of hashish were recovered. The incident comes amid heightened security concerns along the more than 1,300-kilometer border between the two countries. Earlier this month, a woman was killed in Tajikistan by gunfire linked to fighting on the Afghan side of the border, prompting a formal protest from the capital, Dushanbe. Meanwhile, Tajik authorities have also reported several armed encounters with suspected Afghan drug smugglers this year. So, while Kabul says the latest incident is under control, cross-border trafficking and the risk of further armed incidents remain significant concerns for Tajikistan. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
Pakistan is looking to strengthen its trade and energy links with Persian Gulf markets as the disruption around the Strait of Hormuz continues. Mariam Zia reports from Islamabad.
Pakistan is considering adding container ships to its national fleet as disruption around the Strait of Hormuz raises costs for exporters. Pakistan National Shipping Corporation (PNSC) says it is considering acquiring or chartering 3 to 5 feeder vessels. Each would carry between 1,100 and 2,000 containers. But there is no firm timeline yet. PNSC says it will announce details of the expanded regional services in the future. The move comes as freight costs have surged. For Pakistani mango exporters, shipping a refrigerated 40-foot container to Persian Gulf
markets now costs up to $8,500. Last year, it cost as little as $1,000. Now exporters estimate mango shipments have fallen by about 50%. However, overall exports have been resilient. Pakistan exported $1.94 billion to GCC states between January and July, up to 2.1% from a year earlier. The disruption is also raising concerns over energy security. Pakistan State Oil says it is exploring wider cooperation with Kuwait Petroleum Corporation in fuel products, refining, storage, terminal shipping and logistics. For Pakistan, the disruption is putting a pressure on two critical links with the Persian Gulf, moving its exports and securing the energy supplies that keep its economy running. Mariam Sa, A News, Islamabad.
After the break, we'll take a look at other top stories making the headlines today. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, you're watching Primetime. The United States and Iran have exchanged new threats as Washington prepares to announce what it calls the largest financial pressure campaign ever imposed on Tehran.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is expected to unveil additional economic sanctions targeting Iran and countries that continue trading with it later today. The measures come as Iran warns it could halt all oil exports from the Gulf if what it calls an economic war continues. Iranian official Mohsen Rezai said Tehran would not allow a single drop of oil to be exported through the Strait of Hormuz or anywhere in the Persian Gulf if economic pressure increases. He also warned that countries supporting US sanctions could be viewed as participating in an act of war. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi dismissed the threat of the new measures, calling them a sign of desperation. He described them as a continuation of what he called Washington's maximum pressure policy and urged the United States to pursue dialogue instead. This is a repetitive scenario, from the crippling sanctions imposed during the Obama administration to the maximum pressure campaign during Mr. Trump's first administration, and now to the latest sanctions. All of these measures have been introduced under different titles, but they represent the same kind of bullying that we have always seen in American policy. Meanwhile, Iran's state-controlled Persian Gulf Strait Authority has warned that vessels accused of violating its transit rules in the Strait of Hormuz could face penalties, including fines, detention, or confiscation. Fewer than 20 commodity vessels transited the narrow waterway over the weekend, according to shipping data, as Iranian and US restrictions continue to limit traffic through the key energy route. It remains one of the world's most important oil transit corridors, with at least 20% to 25% of global energy shipments passing through it. The latest developments come as Tehran and Washington remain locked in a broader confrontation, with diplomatic efforts showing little progress.
Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev has visited some of Bukhara's most important landmarks as part of the second day of the president's official visit to Uzbekistan. Accompanied by Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, the leaders and their families visited the historic Ismail Samani Mausoleum and the Ark Fortress. The fortress is over 2,000 years old and now houses the Bukhara State Museum Reserve. The US and Canada are trading tariff threats, putting one of the world's biggest trading relationships under new pressure. Now, both governments face a difficult choice of returning to the negotiating table or risking a deeper economic confrontation.
The United States and Canada are facing a sharp escalation in their trade dispute after talks aimed at resolving tensions collapsed late Friday. US President Donald Trump has accused Canada of seeking the benefits of being a US state without actually being one, while defending new tariffs on Canadian goods. Washington has announced 50% tariffs on around $20 billion worth of Canadian imports, effective immediately. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has described the move as a miscalculation aimed at hurting and dividing Canada. He said the two countries were now in a trade war, adding that Canada had been attacked and would respond accordingly. The latest escalation follows what had appeared to be promising negotiations earlier in the week. Both sides now accuse the other of making unacceptable last-minute demands. Trump's latest comments also revive his repeated calls for Canada to become America's 51st state, a proposal firmly rejected by Canadian leaders and widely criticized across the country. US Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said Canada would be foolish to think it could win a trade war with the United States. He warned Canada could face serious economic damage and said Carney would likely return to talk soon.
That's all we've got time for on Primetime this evening. From all of us here in the studio, thank you very much for watching and have a safe and restful evening. Good night.